Hello, I thought today would be a really good opportunity for us to dive a lot deeper into biopsychosocial bubbles, okay? To go along with this video, we have our workbook, okay, which I would like you to fill in your own time using obviously the booklet and this video that we're going to go through. It's important that we understand what's actually going on in our own lives, as most of the time what happens is we just live it and all of these things happen around us and we don't really pay much attention to it. So the point of today's video is to dive a lot deeper into biopsychosocial bubbles so that you can start to understand there's certain things going on in your life, inside your body, inside your head, and culturally adopted or socio-economically wise, and we can see how they are affecting us, but more importantly we can start to change them so that we can push further on our way to recovery. So, in the 1970s, there was a gentleman called George Engel, and he devised something called the biopsychosocial model. Okay, if you're familiar with it, you will more than likely be used to seeing it in a Venn diagram. Okay, biological, psychological, and social. However, as great as this was, and it really was great for the time, because what happened was it managed to take us away from the whole pain being about damage and just solely about pain meaning damage. And it really changed the paradigm, to be honest, and pushed everybody much more into the realms of things like neuroscience and trying to extend and further our own understanding of what pain actually was. The biopsychosocial model, though, is about health in general, okay, not just pain. So it's important that we understand this first. However, when the biopsychosocial model first came out, it wasn't without its problems, and to be honest, it still isn't, because generally what happened was there was a lot of healthcare practitioners that went, oh, okay, yeah, I'm really digging this new model. And what happened was they started to pay less and less attention to the biology part, and they started to focus more on the psychological and the social, which, to be honest, really wasn't a great thing, because it meant there was a lot of people out there that didn't get the help that they really needed, because people started to put things down to more about the psychology, more about the social. So we had people with ME being diagnosed with things like yuppie flu or mass hysteria. So in a way, it pushed us further forward, but also in a way, it kind of held us back a lot. And to be honest, there is still a camp out there of practitioners who do operate like this. Not everybody, obviously, but there are still some, and they're still causing massive amounts of damage. My problem with the biopsychosocial model is that you can't put human consciousness, human subjective experience into a Venn diagram. Yes, there are certain things that will overlap, okay? However, there is not enough room to put the stuff that overlaps, and sometimes it confuses the matter altogether. So the way I prefer to explain things is in biopsychosocial bubbles, because it makes a little bit more sense when we start to look at how they interplay with it. Because to be honest, biology and psychology are very much almost the same thing. Because if we take emotions, okay? Your psychological state, what you feel, your emotions at the time, whether you're angry, whether you're sad, are, in essence, biological from what's going on in the various chemicals in your body, okay? So if you are in love and you feel great and you feel fantastic because you found the person that you've always known you were meant to be with, then that psychological, that feeling in love is also massively biological in terms of things like oxytocin, our love drug, our love chemical. So when it comes to it, a lot of the things on this side are going to be this side as well. There's going to be certain things that are solely to these, like just this one or just this one, but there is a massive overlap, or where one is essentially the other, and then how they interact with each other gets even more complex, okay? So what I do want you to do is to get the old biopsychosocial model out of your head and adopt this one where we can start to dissect it a little bit better, okay? So think about it like this. This is all about biological factors that affect us. This is all about psychological factors that affect us. And this is all of the social factors that affect us. Sometimes this biological factor will affect this social factor. Sometimes this psychological one will affect this one and that one. But at the end of the day, they will pass through each other, changing each other, and they all filter down to you, to what you feel and what you experience, okay? So let's dive in a little bit. In your workbooks, you will see that I have provided a few examples. There are way more than I have put on the board, and you at home will more than likely find ones for yourselves as well. But these are generally going to be the ones that you'll probably figure out on your own. So let's go through it, okay? So one of the first ones you'll see in the booklet and on the board is sex, okay? Whether you're a biological man, biological woman, okay? We're not talking about gender. We'll get to that in a moment. We're talking about biological, your DNA, what your chromosomes say, okay? So we'll get into gender in a bit, but sex, there is a vast difference between biological men and biological women, okay? Not just what is between the legs, but psychologically and socially, okay? What I have found over the last decade of doing this is that, especially when it comes to pain, men and women are very, very different, okay? Men do not deal with pain very well. Nobody deals with pain very well, but men are especially bad at it. And it even goes into our kind of social factors. So if we put cultural norms, okay? You've probably seen films where the woman goes, "Oh, where's your husband Bob?" And she goes, "Oh, he's got the man flu." It's widely established that when biological men get the flu, we're dying, okay? And there is reasons for this, because if you think of a biological woman, you guys watching this are fantastic at dealing with pain. Yes, you struggle with it just like everybody else, but the thing is, you pick up certain little coping skills along the way, because in essence, your biology is set up for you to have pain, as bad as that sounds. From early in your life, you go through puberty, you have different hormone changes that make you more predisposed to headaches and kind of migraines. You will have menstruation every month. Could you imagine if men menstruated every month? The world would be a very different place. You know what I mean? So you have these different things going on. You have childbirth. You have literally a body that from the get-go is going to experience pain, whether in acute form or chronic form, doesn't really matter, but that body is going to produce pain at some point, most likely on a monthly basis. However, men don't. For the average man on the street, he doesn't really experience pain whatsoever. And the only time he really does is when he gets injured, most likely playing sports or something like that, or job-wise, things like that. So what happens is, when we push, let's say we get to about 30 years old, when a woman gets chronic pain, because of her biology, because of her biological sex, she has developed certain coping skills throughout her life to be able, to make her be able to manage that pain a little bit better. So you might have a period routine. So you go, right, water bottle, because I know that works, because that's part of your coping skills, okay? Whereas men, when they suddenly get diagnosed with, I don't know, fibromyalgia, for the majority of their life, they've been completely pain-free. So it becomes a very big shock. And because they haven't had menstruation every month, because they haven't gone through childbirth, they don't have those coping skills, okay? And if we also look at the social factors towards it, right? Culture, boys don't cry type mentality. Well, you can't show any emotion if you're a man. If you live in a culture like that, then what's going to happen is when you do get pain, okay, the way you're going to deal with it is, because you're a biological man, what's going to happen is you are basically not going to have those coping skills, and you're not going to be able to really talk to it about your friends. Whereas with women, what we generally find is, if you are on your period and things like that, what will happen is your friends can sympathize with you, because they've been there, because they have periods as well, and they know exactly what's going on with you, okay? So, like I say, biological sex, just that one thing straight off the back has massive implications down the line based on whether you're a biological man or biological female, okay? Please note, I'm not saying men have it worse. I'm not saying women are better at pain. What I'm saying is that pain is a subjective thing and it is unique for every single person, okay? The point I'm making is that even something as simple as your biological sex can have massive implications psychologically and socially because of that, okay? No doubt I'll probably get a few emails on this, but fire through. I have also done a podcast on this, which is something I quite enjoy doing because this did get quite philosophical, almost, I suppose. Moving on, we also have age, okay? Biological, what is your age? Are you 12? Are you 25? Are you 65? That is biological age. You can't get around that. That is how old you are. However, you can have two 50-year-old women and one can be going still nightclubbing, can be going doing abseiling, can be exercising every day, and the other 50-year-old woman can be at home completely crippled, okay? Because when we look at it, there's such a thing as biologically age, what you are. But this age, biological, is also going to be influenced by social aspects. Let's say friends, okay? If you are about to turn 40 and your friends group is also women, let's say women and men who are also 40, however, they're very active and they're still going on, and psychologically 40 is the new 20, okay? Then your biological age and how you perceive that biological age, okay, is going to be a lot different to somebody who has friends whose mentality is, well, you're turning 40, best get that Zimmer frame out, get that blue rinse done. So you see, age, in essence, although it is biological, depending on the social bubble and the psychological bubble, depends on how you're going to feel about it, okay? Tissue health, another fantastic one, because if you don't do anything and you don't exercise and you don't move, then what's going to happen is you are going, okay, to start stressing about it, because you're going to start feeling a little bit guilty. It's going to make you produce more different chemicals, which you're going to interpret as things like guilt. It's going to change your emotion. If you don't exercise, it lowers your mood. Exercise is a fantastic way to boost your mental health, to feel better. It's not a cure, merely a catalyst. But what I'm saying is, if you don't do anything, if you don't move, then you are going to feel worse. And the longer you don't move, the more things in this biological bubble that are going to start to stack up, okay? As your tissue health starts to deteriorate, especially if you're a woman, say 65, if you don't do load-bearing activity, you are at risk of things like osteoporosis, okay? Where our bones become more fragile, which means that the social bubble, okay? Things that you enjoy, entertainment, going out with your friends, you're very, very likely to stop doing them because psychologically you're filled with fear. Well, the doctors, I haven't really moved a lot, and you know what, I'm 65 now, and the doctors just done a load of imaging and I've got osteoarthritis everywhere. Friend rings up, hey Sandra, do you want to come and do, I don't know, do you want to come to Edinburgh and do you want to walk around for a while? Psychologically, fear of movement, remember, also comes down to past experiences and, most importantly, beliefs, okay? If your belief is that osteoarthritis is, is definitely going to cause you pain, then you're not going to go to Edinburgh, you're not going to socialize. And we are social creatures. We need social interaction, because what happens when we don't get social interaction is our chemicals start to change. We get depressed. See how something as simple as tissue health affects psychological, and it also affects social, and it filters down to how you experience everything. Inflammation, pretty much straightforward, guys. If you've got something like, or even let's say rheumatoid arthritis, autoimmune condition, okay, that is going to have certain psychological effects, and it's also going to have social effects. Genetics and hypermobility, another one. Any one of these has the potential to be a contributing factor, okay? They also have the ability to be a pretty big contributing factor. However, no one works alone. They need others they need other factors from these other bubbles, okay? So if you look at genetics, there is such a thing as a hedonic set point, okay? So it's like a base level of, so let's say, so let's say this is weeks. Let's say we got week 10 and we got week 1. And then this is kind of feeling good, okay? Your hedonic set point is the set point that you are at to just be content. So if we look at my 7 cats, right? Yes, 7 cats. When I first got my cat, I said to the vet, okay, what do I do to make it happy, to make it content? And she said, super simple. Stroke it, feed it, make sure it's got water, give it lots of love. That is it. 4 things to make my cat content, to keep it at its hedonic set point, okay? Humans on the other end, way more complicated. We have, Maslow produced something called the hierarchy of needs, which is, not everybody accepts it, and it does have some flaws, but it's a pretty good place to start. And he said that we need, as a race, we need certain things. We need food, we need water, we need shelter, we need love, we need to feel like we're part of a society, we need self-actualization, we need to be making ourselves better and feel like we're providing, and certain things like that. So our hedonic set point, okay, what will happen is over the weeks, something really good will happen, and you'll go up. But remember, it's a hedonic set point. You will return back. So what will happen is, let's say you win £1,000 on the lottery. Whoo, really happy, yes, really happy. And then after about 3 weeks, you've spent it all, and you're right back to where you started. Then perhaps somebody dies, you'll go down, you'll feel despair, but then it's a hedonic set point, so you return back to your set point. They actually did a really interesting study years and years ago on people who had, actually, I very well may, yes, I do, I have it in the studio. So, if we use this, okay, what they did was, they did a research study into people who had just lost their legs in road traffic accidents. And they also included in this study people who had just won the lottery, funny enough. And what they found was the people that won the lottery were happy, okay, for the same amount of time that the people who had just lost their legs were sad for, okay, temporary misery, for the same amount of time. And what happened was both groups, the people who won the lottery and the people who had lost their legs, both returned back to their hedonic set point. So your hedonic set point is essentially based in genetics. That's a big one, because some people are more genetically predisposed to things like depression, okay? But there's also socio-economic factors to it as well, and the culture. So if you're born into privileged, white, rich family, then what's going to happen is you're generally going to find that hedonic set point a little bit higher than most people, okay? If you were born into poverty, then your hedonic set point is going to be a little bit lower. And if you have the win of the draw and it's genetics and you're born kind of poor, then it's going to be even worse. And although it is a set point, I'm pretty sure, confident to say for me, don't take it as gospel though, that this set point can definitely change over time, okay? Because if you look at me now, I am pretty much always happy. My hedonic set point's like there, okay? So even when nothing really interesting is going on in my life, I'm happy, I'm content, I'm chilled. And if something bad happens, then I can deal with it quite well. I'm like, oh well, but I'm quite an optimistic nihilist. I'm just like, So it gets brushed off and then I'm fine. However, if you caught me after I just come back from Afghanistan, this was, well, way down here. And for me to feel happy took a hell of a lot. But for me to feel unhappy didn't take a lot at all. But nowadays, you can literally just say hello and I'm like, oh, hey. It's just simple things that make me happy. So our hedonic set point, guys, okay, comes down to things like our genetics. And it's also influenced by things like social factors, okay, culture. See how this is starting to get crazy now. It's getting so in depth and we're starting to see that, God, even though only it's one thing, it's many different things. It's ridiculously. So Keep hypermobility as well, genetic connective tissue disorders. But remember, some of the world's best contortionists are hypermobile and they don't have any pain. Some do, some don't. So yes, that can be a contributing factor, but it has to have factors from here as well. Dystonia, very biological, very neurological. That's where you'll literally, your muscles will contract and they won't stop it. I worked with a young lady years ago who had cervical dystonia and her head was literally stuck like that. However, when she went to work and she had a really good day, she'd have a bit more movement. If she went to work and she had a really bad day, it will be like that. So even set in stone biological diseases, conditions such as dystonia, also levy off these as well. Drugs, big one, okay? So if you are on gabapentin, anticonvulsant that is designed for people with epilepsy, because it basically is a GABA drug and it will limit the amount of activity your brain can produce, because what happens generally is it'll produce too much and then people will seizure. So this is to just dull that down. If you have that drug in your system, okay, it is going to have an effect here, because what's going to happen is we're going to have drug effects, okay? So biological drug, but psychologically, it's also going to completely wipe out our cognitive function, okay? So if we're on a lot of gabapentin, then what's going to happen is we're going to get a drug effect in between, okay? And it's going to wreck out our cognitive functions, and we're going to be very, I mean, Christ, when I was on it, I forgot the word for socks once and had to describe it as foot clothing. That's how much it kind of wrecked with my head. Also, that one biological drug is going to affect not only the psychological, okay, and your kind of ability to be in your own head and for it not to feel fuzzy, but it's also going to affect socially. Things like jobs. If you're on a ton of gabapentin, you're going to find it very hard to go to work. You're going to find it very hard to do your job, especially if it's quite a kind of taxing mental task kind of job. So something as simple as biological drugs is going to affect social. It might also affect your friends, okay? Generally, especially, well, this is what I found was when I got ill, and a lot of people also tell me the same, when you first get ill, your friends, your family, unless you're very lucky, they give you 6 months to get your shit together, basically. And if you're not better in 6 months, then what you find is friends and family start to just distance themselves. And I lost a lot of friends, or people who I thought were friends when I first got ill. So, see what I mean? Something as simple as gabapentin, a drug, or pregabalin, it'll affect you psychologically, it'll also affect you socially, in terms of if you can do your job, how your friends and family speak to you, how your support network is. So, see, it's getting even more complicated now. Sleep, big one, big biological sleep. You need that sleep. It washes tau proteins, all sorts. It's literally there to let you rest and for your body to heal, for your mind to sort itself out with. You need it. You need it. Lack of sleep. If we look at people who work night shifts, they live a lot less than people who don't work night shifts. We need sleep. So if you aren't getting good sleep, then you can be pretty much certain that biologically not getting enough sleep is going to affect your cognitive function, okay? It's going to affect how your body works. It's also going to affect you at your job. It's going to affect your friends and family. And it's going to affect money. If you get fired from your job because you keep falling asleep, because you're not meeting the targets, because you're tired, then what you're going to find is you're not going to be getting a paycheck because you've been sacked, okay? Which is going to fit in here, okay? Because we're going to go unemployed. So we've got stress from that, okay? So literally, if you don't have any money, what's going to happen is that is going to start to change your emotions, okay? Biological, your chemicals are going to change. You're going to interpret that as emotions. You're going to feel very irritable. You might feel a bit guilty, a bit disheartened. You might feel kind of at a loss. And what's going to happen is that's putting not just psychological stress on yourself. I've got to find a job. It's also putting biological stress on your system. Stress in small amounts keeps us ticking, both physically and psychological. However, chronic systemic stress will kill you. Look at people who retire early. Straight downhill. in terms of things like cognitive function, okay, and body, I suppose. So something as simple as sleep can have massive effects socially on your job. It can cause you to lose your job, which means you're going to start to stress about money. And then you may start having different beliefs creeping in. Oh God, there's no jobs about, what am I going to, more stress. Something as simple as sleep. Genetic makeup, that goes into what we just explained prior about the hedonic set point, okay? Menopause, biological feature. As soon as women hit a certain point, what is going to happen is you're going to hit the menopause, okay? Your hormones, your chemical makeup is going to change. You're going to have hot flushes, which is also going to affect you psychologically, because you might have, oh no, I'm too young, I can't be doing this. I maybe wanted more kids. And what very often happens is people get depressed, or they may get angry. They may take it out on partners or their kids. So something as simple as the menopause can have a massive effect psychologically and socially. And this, guys, is just the biological factors, and there is a ton. Let's move along. Let's have a look a little bit at the psychological ones, because these are just as important, okay? So we've got beliefs. What do you believe, okay? Do you believe that every time you move, you're causing damage? Do you believe damage means pain? Pain means damage. So the more pain you're in, the worse the worse your body is. Is that what you believe? Because beliefs are a very important thing. So as we've gone through before, these affect these massively, but this also affects these two. So if you believe something and it's not factually correct, remember, it doesn't matter what your brain believes. Okay? It doesn't matter if it's true, if it's false. If your brain believes it, that is what your brain is going to use to process information when it comes in. That is what it's going to do. So if you believe that osteoarthritis is definitely, despite all the abundance of research we've got, going to cause pain, then what's going to happen is if a doctor shows you an MRI or X-ray or imaging that says, look, we found a lot of osteoarthritis in your hip, because of this belief, then your output is going to be pain, because your brain's like, oh, well, we need to produce pain. We don't want to damage it anymore. We've got to do it. But this one wrong belief is also going to affect you socially. You're going to stop doing certain, let's say, let's put exercise here. You're going to stop going to the gym, exercise environments. Remember, exercise, both social and biological. Do you see what I mean now about how a lot of them are in all three? So if you stop going to the gym because you believe this osteoarthritis is wrecking out your joints and you're going to get worse and worse, then what's going to happen is tissue health is going to go out the window. And we've already covered what happens when that happens, okay? Beliefs. Nocebos tie directly into belief. So everybody's familiar with the placebo effect. If I give you a paracetamol because you've got some pain, generally what will happen is it will help with pain. However, if I give you a sugar pill and I say, hey, it's paracetamol, then it's pretty likely it will also work. If I give you a sugar pill that is stamped with the words paracetamol, so technically less sugar, that's like 5 times more effective than if I just give you the unbranded sugar pill. If we go even further and I give you an injection of saline, which is just water, and you think it's not, then that is about 12 times more powerful in terms of pain relief than the sugar pill. And there's a lot of research out there that also shows you that the more attractive the doctor or nurse administering the injection, okay, the more attractive they are, the more pain relief you will get. I'm just saying I've had a lot of success. It might not be down to my George Clooney looks. No. So you can see, that is what a placebo is. A nocebo is the opposite effect. That's where somebody will do something to you, or you will take information in, and your brain will process it in a negative way and produce, you guessed it, negative output. So, a bit like when you go to the doctor's office, sit down, and there's a massive spine model with a huge bulging disc. That is a big nocebo. And then, remember, when it comes to bulging discs, it's like 66.66% of them go back in without you doing anything. Okay? Also, the bigger they are, the better recovery rate they have. And also what we find is that a massive amount of population don't have have bulging discs, but don't have any pain. Okay? So we've got the research, we know what is true and what's not. But if you just sat there and watched this doctor squeeze on the model and a big balloon's popped out of his spine and says, yeah, this is what you've got, this is what we found. Beliefs, nocebo, mix it with a bit of emotion, a little bit of fear as well, then what's going to happen is you're going to produce pain from that because your body's going to try and protect you. More importantly though, you're going to stop interacting the same way with friends. What happens is, if you're producing a lot of pain as well, what will happen is you'll become very snappy to those around you who you love. I can testify, I got divorced because of my pain. You know, it's because it makes you, I was very irritable, I was very angry because it was the only way I could kind of express what was going on. So nocebos, really, really bad. We need to avoid them. And oh Christ, when it comes to things like hypermobility, fibromyalgia, there is just so much potential nocebo out there. It's disgusting. Okay, something as simple as pacing, and you know how much I hate pacing. Here, so the doctor will explain, or the OT, well, you know, you think of it like, that's not how energy works, but they'll be like, oh, think of it as spoons. You've got 12 spoons, you've got to limit your spoons. That is a belief and a nocebo in one. So what happens is you start to limit your activity, and in the shit box you go. Okay, it's not a great thing. Emotions, very important, very, very important. Okay, these are huge mediators for what your brain does with inputs basically, and these affect these. If you're super happy, then socially, you're gonna be doing really well. Everybody's gonna think you're awesome. If you're really angry and pissed off all the time because you're in pain, then when you talk to your friends and family, they're gonna have a very different reaction to you. Same as biological. If you are super sad, then what's gonna happen is you're not really gonna wanna exercise. You're not really going to want to go out with friends and family. You're not really going to want to go to your job, or if you do, you might not give it your full attention. So emotions are super important because they mediate inputs. Think of it like this. I open my door and I take my dog out for a walk. Okay, I walk along the street, having a nice time with my dog, and I go, oh, tell you what, fancy a sandwich. So I go into a corner shop, I get a sandwich, eat my sandwich, and I'm feeling good. And what happens is I continue on, and then I come back home, and just on my way home, I find a scratch card on the floor, I scratch it, and I've won £3,000. I open the door to my house, I let my dog in, and as I look down, my dog has trodden dog crap all through my landing. Okay? Input in, brain has to figure out what it wants to do with it. Keep in mind as well, we've just won £3,000, and I'm feeling pretty good, had a good walk. My brain's probably going to go, well, hey, we could get it cleaner. And what's going to happen is I'm going to see that input, okay? I'm going to get that input, a visual input, my brain's going to process it, and I'm not going to be too bothered about it. I'm just going to get on with it, okay? However, let's say now, let's go back in time. I open the door, I take my dog out, we go for a walk. I'm walking for a bit, I feel a bit hungry, I go and get a sandwich from the shop. I eat it, I walk back, and I slip on the pavement, and I bang my hip. And what happens is I get up and I'm in lots and lots of pain. And I'm also really angry at it. I'm super angry at it. So what happens is I walk along and I open my door, my dog runs in, dog crap all over my landing, input in, brain processes it. I'm very angry still because I'm in pain. I didn't really fancy having my hip getting completely wrecked from just walking my dog. So what's going to happen is my output, I'm going to be very angry. I'm going to be even worse. I'm going to be like, oh, what's the point? But remember, seeing that dog crap all along your landing is the same information in. It's just processed differently now. In the first scenario, I also had £3,000 social factors, things like money, okay? I also wasn't experiencing pain. My body wasn't inflamed. But at the end of the day, it's the same information coming into my brain. But what my brain does with that is going to be very different based on this and based on this. This is the things that I'm really trying to hammer home so that you can do your solutions in your workbook and you can start to change the other aspects of your life that need to be changed in order for you to hit that recovery, okay? Past experiences. Oh God, such an important one. If you go to do something and the last time you did it, it didn't go very well, then guess what? it's probably not going to go very well the next time because your brain is already committed. Oh, well, last time we had to produce pain because we were walking up the hill, we thought we were going to damage your knee. Then even if your knees aren't hurt, if they're not damaged, you're still probably going to produce pain from it to protect you. If every time you get up in front of 1,000 people to speak at a conference or an event and you choke on your own words, then what's going to happen is as soon as you get on the 5 seconds before you go up to the podium and your brain's like, input, what we're doing? Oh no, we've got to speak. And then you're going to get a massive protection output, which is going to be massive amounts of anxiety. Okay? Past experiences, really important. Coping skills, touched on that before when it came to the differences between biological men and women. Okay? Very important. Somebody can deal with inputs way better if they have developed coping skills to them over time. Goes without a brainer. It also means biologically you're going to be able to deal with whatever's going on and socially whatever's going on a lot better if you have them. Gender, super important. Remember, sex is biologically your DNA, your makeup, chromosome-wise, okay? Gender is what you identify as. There's a big difference between sex and gender, okay? So if you think of it like this, let's say biologically you are a male, okay? You were born biologically male, but your gender is female. You identify as a woman. Then what's going to happen is because of gender, okay, and because of the biological sex, it's going to interact with each other, okay? Socially, it is no surprise to anybody, it is not new information that trans people have a very hard time, especially in our Western society, okay? So when we look at it, it means that friends and family, they because of their own beliefs, okay, their own ignorances and different things like that, they may not respect that. They may think, well, no, you're a man and that is it, you're not a woman, okay? Think what that is going to happen. If you've got somebody who's a biological male and they are identifying and they feel like a woman, then what's going to happen is this is going to cause massive chemical changes because they're going to be angry, they're going to be depressed, especially if society isn't very accepting. Or you've only got to look at the suicide statistics for the trans community. They are very high. Our society is not very accommodating at all. So you can see how that gender factor here can have massive influences in the social, and it can also have massive influences in the biological, okay? Because if you do get depressed, we've got all the issues we've already talked about before. So fear of movement is a good one as well. If you fear movement because of damage, then it's going to limit what you do socially. It's going to limit biology. Let's move on to the last one, okay? Because this is a very long video, and to be honest, we're still not super deep into this. We're still surface level. So this is my favorite. I'm not saying it's the most important. I am saying that it is as important as these, and people do not give this one enough credit, okay? Culture. Very important. About 2017, 18, I had a big influx of new clients who were all from the Pakistani community, okay? And it was really interesting to work with people from this area of kind of life and to be able to explore and ask different questions about their own culture. And what we find is basically they would have big families, and it is part of kind of tradition, I suppose, part of culture, that they have lots of children. And what we normally find in this culture is that as part of the culture, they look after their parents way more than kind of my culture would or things like that. But what happens is they would look after the parents, a massive deal. All the kids would kind of gather around to really look after them into old age. A lot in the same way as kind of China and Japan, things like that. And the biggest thing was, because of this culture, it had a massive effect. Because when all of them got diagnosed with things like fibromyalgia, okay, what would happen was physically they would not be able to look after their parents anymore because they were in so much pain. But socially, friends, family did not like this. And some of the women that I worked with a couple of years ago, people would spit on them in the street because it was a big kind of shame thing. So if you think about it in that retrospect, okay, that is going to completely change your emotions. You're going to feel guilty because you can't look after your parents, even though you can't even use your hands and you can't lift them out of bed. And biologically, it's going to have massive implications because you're not going to exercise, you're going to be depressed, your tissue health's going to go down, your chemical makeup's going to change, your hedonic set point's going to go off. So something like one little tiny thing in society, okay, affected how their biological and how their psychological bubbles interacted with each other because of the culture that they lived in, okay? So you can see it also moves into things like cultural norms, as I touched on earlier. Boys don't cry mentality. Men, again, suicide rate very high for guys because we can't express ourselves. We can't tell people how we feel. Toxic masculinity, all of that stuff. We can't express how we feel to people. We can't convey emotion. And what happens is most guys just take the only option they think they have, which is suicide. If the culture was a little bit different and it was very acceptable, which is it's slowly getting there, for men to talk about feelings to one another, then what happens is biologically, those bubbles are going to change. Psychologically, they're going to have coping skills because they can talk to their friends. They can deal with it a bit better. Well, I'll just get through today and then I can talk to George. So even our cultural norms kind of affect these. Jobs, as I've probably said 100 billion, 1,000 million times, jobs are one of the biggest leading factors, contributing factors to whether or not people have pain, especially things like lower back pain, okay? If you go to a job you hate, the prevalence for you getting chronic back pain is very, very high, okay? Incredibly high. Whoa, what I did miss from the psychological, which is actually a really big one, I don't know why I missed it, is trauma, okay? Going back to psychological for a second, trauma has huge implications biologically and socially. And I'm not going to explain why because you will already know, okay? But let's jump back to this. This is one of my favorites, social hierarchies. We are, and there are many different social hierarchies in the world from all different ranges of life. More importantly, all different animals on the earth, okay? Our social hierarchy. Think about it like a ladder, okay? So there's our social hierarchy ladder. If you go to a brand new job, then you're here, okay? If you're the boss of a company, then you're there. And what we find, okay, is the higher you are on the social hierarchy ladder, okay, the more serotonin you will produce. And serotonin is a very important chemical, not just for your immune system, but for health in general, and most importantly, as a kind of social bonding chemical, okay? And what we find, actually, lobsters is a good place to start. Some of the very first antidepressants, the SSRIs, the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, we actually tested them on lobsters because lobsters, we have a common ancestry with lobsters, some 750 million years or so back, or probably longer to be honest. But their nervous system is serotonin based like ours. And what we find is if a lobster fights another lobster and he loses, what happens is he gets depressed. Yes, lobsters can get depressed. And what happens when he gets depressed? His posture changes. He shrinks. Part of his brain does all actually. And if we take this lobster that 2 days prior had defeated another lobster and we make them fight, what happens was this lobster that's already beaten this lobster 2 days prior, he's got an 80% chance of losing again. Okay? In lobsters, serotonin drives postural reflexes, and us to somewhat. And basically this means that when two lobsters fight, there's different stages to how they fight, but basically the last one, after they've finished spitting at each other, they can basically taste each other and go, oh, actually, he's quite a hard man, I'm going to leave him alone. But if it goes past that and there is no conflict resolution, what happens is lobsters will pincer the eyes in various parts of another lobster, and they will whip their tails backwards. And it's serotonin that drives this. So when the tail whips back, it propels them backwards, which obviously tears off various antennas and various body parts of the lobster. So the higher a lobster is on their social hierarchy, okay, the stronger he will become. His immune system gets better. He is stronger at fighting. He gets first choice of females. He gets first choice of food and shelter. And to be honest, it is not much different for human beings. Social hierarchy is a big thing. So you will have a social hierarchy at work. You will have a social hierarchy at home. and you may have been the kind of top dog in your house before you got ill. You may have been the breadwinner. You come home, everybody be like, oh, how you doing, mom, dad, whatever. And then as you got ill, you felt yourself slip further down as you needed to rely more and more on other people to do different things, okay? So your social hierarchy, very important, because in humans, it controls our health. There is a reason why people like Mark Zuckerberg and CEOs of multi-billion-dollar companies never get ill. There's a reason why they can work 120 hours a week and be completely fine. It's because they're at the top of the social hierarchy and they're smashing out copious amounts of serotonin on a daily basis. That's keeping their immune system and it's keeping their body healthy. And this is something that gets neglected all of the time. All of the time. People never look at the social hierarchy because you have a social hierarchy with your friends. You may have been the happy-go-lucky life of the party one, but as you got ill, you start to slip down that ladder, and what happens is people start to maybe not invite you out. I remember when I was ill, and I remember people would ask me to go out, and I'd be like, can't, I've got a migraine, I can't, back's killing, hips are wrecked. And what happens is after a while, people stop inviting you, and you slip further down that social hierarchy. So what I'm saying is the evidence we've got is the higher you get up that ladder, the better you will feel, the better your body will be, the better your coping systems will be. Socially, the more you will do, the more people you will interact with, the better you will feel. So as three, biological, psychological, and social, don't neglect this one, guys, because it is super important. Okay? Social hierarchies are a pretty big deal. We need them in our lives. It's part of our nervous system, essentially. We need it, okay? Moving down, environment. What environment are you in? Are you in a toxic relationship? Are you in a domestically violent relationship? If we look at, if as a child you were hit, okay, physically hit, then you've got about a 12% chance of developing chronic pain in later life. However, if you've ever at any point been in a domestically violent relationship, that can be things like coercive control, doesn't have to be physical, then that percentage, that chance of developing chronic pain in later life goes from 12 to 44. You know what I mean? Just under half. That's insane. Okay? Environment is a big thing. And environment is also kind of biological as well, because what happens is, if you look at kind of me, 80s, 90s kid, what happens is very popular for parents to smoke in the living room back then. So if the environment is one of passive smoking, then it's going to have issues biologically, because as a child, I'm going to be inhaling that passive smoke. Friends and family, another important one, okay? Because they also make up your support network. And if you have people around you that can help you with things day to day and can encourage you, especially things like taking charge of your life, then that is going to have massive psychological positive effects, and it's also going to affect you biologically positively, okay? In the same way that if you don't have a support network, or you have friends who really aren't very good friends, same for family members, that is also going to impact the biological and the psychological and all of the stuff of the social, and it's going to filter down into how you experience things. Money, as we've already touched on, very important as well, because the less money you have, psychologically, you're going to start to get a bit stressed out. Physically, you're also going to get stressed out because you're worrying about how you're going to pay for food, how you're going to send the kids to college, different things like that. So you can see from the whole point of today is that, yes, there are many biological factors, and yes, there are many psychological and indeed many social factors. However, there isn't one bubble that is more important, because they all interact and affect each other before they filter down to either make you create pain, or make you feel happy, or make you feel sad, or anything else for that matter. Whatever output you create is based on what your brain does with information, and whatever the hell is in these three factors that are affecting you. So the whole point of this workbook, guys, is because I want you to look, and I want you to, this course is not just about you moving, it's not just about you stopping subluxing and desiccating. It's about you changing your goddamn life. That's what it's about. That's what I want. That's why I'm so heavy on the information stuff is because I want self-sufficiency from you. I don't want you all going, well, after this, I'm going to go sick. I want you to, as best you can, to do it yourself so you're self-sufficient, so that you're not wasting money on somebody else trying to help you. I want you at home, you to be self-sufficient so that you can do it, so that you can get to the end of the goddamn course and go, you know what, I did it, and I did it myself, and I feel good about it. Thank you for helping along the way, Adam, much appreciated. I got a life to live. That's what I want. So the whole point of this workbook, guys, is for you to work through and identify the things that are affecting you. Because what you'll find in the workbook is I'm going to make you identify all of the different factors that are affecting you, and I want you to find solutions to them. By all means, if you need a bit of help, give me a head or a shout. I do not mind having a chat for an hour or whatever on the phone if it's going to help you. Do not mind doing that. So you'll see in your workbook, we open it up and we've got the Your Turn page. So we've got a column for biological, got a column for psychological, and we've got a column for social. So what I want you to do is to identify what are the biological factors based on some of the stuff we've just covered that are affecting you. Okay? Is it age? Is it menopause? Is it drugs? I want you to identify the psychological ones. Is it beliefs? Is it nocebos? I want you to look at the social. What is it? Is it the support network you have? Is it crap? Could it be better? Is it the environment you're in? Obviously, for people a while ago when kind of COVID-19 and lockdown was a thing, that is going to be a big one. It's going to be a huge one, okay? Because that's a massive social thing. That's going to affect you psychologically and physically. But what I want you to do is find the problem. And let's say, so there's our B, there's our P, and there's our S. Let's say it is sleep, okay? What I want you to do is to write it in. First one, sleep. If you know your sleep is crap, and that is probably a big contributing factor, get it in. Put it in there, okay? Then what you're going to do is 2 pages past that, we've got our solutions page. What I want you to do is, again, so you've got number 1, you can go, right, what was number 1? Number 1 was, what did I write in it? Oh, it was sleep, right. So what solution to number 1, sleep, do I want? And what I want you to do is to write the things that will help you get some decent sleep. It may be a certain drug that maybe a GP can prescribe you. It may be eliminating some of the stress here and indeed here. That might help it. It might be establishing a decent bedtime routine so that your circadian rhythm can get into tune again and you can get some decent sleep. It might be certain coping skills. It might be meditation on a night, maybe with Heather, that will help you relax and unwind and get a better sleep. But I want you to write down these solutions, right? And then when you finished it, and Lord knows how long it's going to take, when you finished it, I want you to take your solutions, right? And you've got the answers to all of them. Obviously, a lot of the biological stuff we are dealing with during the course, getting you stronger. A lot of the psychological stuff, like beliefs, we are dealing with in the course. We're educating you, like this video, and we're showing you what you need to do to kind of break that cycle and start to push towards that recovery. But at the end, and this is what this workbook is for, guys, is on this page here, you have all of the factors unique to you that are affecting you, okay? And on this page, you're going to write down all of the solutions to them. And then what you're going to do is you're going to implement them in your life. You're going to change your sleep pattern, okay? You're going to start getting more sleep. It's, remember, biological, psychological, social. It is the factors that influence you and what you feel and what you experience. And the only way we're going to hit and get that nice full recovery is if we cover all of them, okay? Simply using exercise, not enough. Simply using psychology, not enough. Simply using social aspects, not enough. You have to give your life a big overhaul. And what I want you to do with this workbook is to find the solutions, okay? I'm always at the end of the phone if you need a hand with this, because it can get a bit complicated. But once you finish your solutions page, you've got all of the things that you need to change. So it might be sitting down, talking with your partner, saying, look, I'm doing this course, you know what I mean? I'm trying to get better, but what I need from you, Derek, Sandra, whatever, is I need your support. I need you to help me with it. I need you to be active in it. Hey, why don't you do it with me? Okay, that's a good solution, because not only have you got a bit of support when you're doing the sessions, in some of the time under tension sessions, which are a bit hard, if you've got a partner next to you doing it, or a friend, then you can laugh about it, and it's a little coping skill. It makes it easier, and you can laugh, and what happens is you can get into a routine. You can have a new social hierarchy. Come on, kids, let's help mom, let's help dad do his exercises today, or her exercises, or they, or whatever. And what happens is it can become a family routine. Oh, mum's getting really good at these exercises, I hope I get good. You know what I mean? It's about the influence that these have amongst each other. And that's what this workbook's about. It's about putting the options down, putting the solutions down to the problems that you identified when you filled the book in, and then changing your life accordingly. That's what it's about. So guys, there's also more work booklets. I don't think you're getting off lightly. Let's get it done. Like I say, I am always at the end of the phone. Do not feel guilty about ringing me or saying, oh God, I don't want to waste any of your time. Guys, as long as you guys get what you want to achieve from the course, I am happy. Okay? If I have to spend 20 hours over the next 40 weeks of the course or so talking to you on the phone, I don't mind. Okay? Neither does Heather. We're there for you. So use us. It's what we're here for. Okay? So, I wish you all the luck. If you need any help, give me a shout, and as always, I will see you in the next video. See ya.